Good evening, welcome to Town Council Public Hearing and regular meeting October 18, 2018. Can I have a roll call?
Buckles present.
Always present.
And present.
And present.
Frozen present.
First present.
Let me know when we've established a quorum. Can we all rise for a moment of silence and pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm here, public hearing comments, item A. First, conditional use permit application for residential units above first floor commercial in the commercial 1 zoning district, 12 Peach Street.
Nobody has signed up to speak, but I did receive something in writing regarding the conditional use permit.
That's all we got, it's just a one for conditional use permit.
Okay, this is an email from David Kegler, the associate broker for Blue Heron Realty at 113 Mason Avenue. He says that I am most supportive of the application for residential units above commercial space at 12 Peach Street. As there is a separate entryway for such apartments in the subject building, it certainly accommodates the use. Also, there are many other situations similar to this use, so I want to recommend that the permit be approved.
Thank you. Recognition of visitors, presentations. Ms. Carol Evans from the Eastern Shore Virginia Tourism Commission.
We have another item.
We only have one, we only have one speaker for all.
Yeah, there was only one comment.
Oh, anyway.
There's only one.
But, yeah, you need to close those.
Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
We're not taking any public comment on accessory dwelling units?
Nobody signed up.
So
Yes, you can ask the crowd.
If anybody got any comments on accessory dwelling units? All right, now can I get a motion to close to the public hearing?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Public hearing is closed. Recognition of visitors and presentations. Ms. Carol Evans from the Eastern Shore Tourism Commission.
Thank you. It is nice to be back and give you some updates according to our tourism commission. Does it need to be on?
No.
I see it. So tonight with me, I have, are we on? So tonight with me, I have asked Steve Potts, who is the chairman of the Eastern Shore Virginia Tourism Commission, to join us and ask Steve to give updates and report to you. Steve has served on our commission for 12 years. He is currently our chair. He has been our vice chair. He's been our chair before. So he comes with a lot of experience, and we are so proud to have him. His business, you may well know, is up on Chincoteague as Bill's Restaurant. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Steve Potts. Thank you.
Hey Steve, did this switch on? Did you turn it on? So I can work.
Is that better?
Yeah.
I want to thank you all first for letting me have a chance to speak with you. As you know, I'm Steve Potts, some of you may know from the Eastern Shore Tourism Commission. I'm a lifelong resident of the shore, lived in Chincoteague. People often ask me if I lived there my whole life, and my response is always, well, not yet, but we're working on it. I know there's been a lot of discussion recently about the future of the Tourism Commission. And as you all know, the commission was created to market both Accomack and Northampton regionally, and therefore is funded by both counties. Recently, the funding has been threatened, which has put the Tourism Commission in a position where it's difficult to move forward with a lot of what we do. We're asking our partners to reach out to the representative representatives of the Board of Supervisors and let them know their needs. If you believe in our work, or we have helped your business, we'd ask you to speak out about it. Simply writing your representative a letter that expresses your experience with the Tourism Commission can make all the difference. We're here to work for you, but cannot live without you. We want to take the opportunity to thank you to reassure all departments that we're still working for you. The Southern Gateway Welcome Center continues to welcome guests, driving them into our Eastern Shore towns and businesses to stimulate our economy. While the Welcome Center is seen by many as the Tourism Commission's crowning achievement, there are many more assets at stake. One such asset is the annual Visitor's Guide, which is distributed throughout the state and is the most important piece of information that guests take with them when they leave the Welcome Center. It's the one thing that guests pick up. We continue to work on our content marketing strategy through our 7 content platforms, including Facebook and Instagram. On October the 22nd, this Monday, we're going to host a tourism workshop from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Eastern Shore Community College, where there'll be a soft launch of our new website. We're very excited about it. This website is what we like to call the new Virtual Welcome Center, and it's been developed as an extension of the Welcome Center, located at the entrance of the tunnel, that for years has been so successful. Events on this website will feed live through Virginia Tourism Corporation's website and will be showcased to 16 million people a year. We're very excited about the opportunity to extend our reach to so many potential visitors. However, we cannot move forward without your continued support. Please reach out to your representatives today and let them know what the Tourism Commission has done for you. We appreciate your support. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Up next, Michelle Gorman from Cape Charles Main Street Program.
Sorry, got a little excited. Just coming here to give you a quarterly report from Cape Charles Main Street, and then I'll take some questions at the end. I'll try to be brief. Just as a reminder, I just wanted to show you a graph of kind of what we do. It's all based on the four committee Main Street approach. We're really working on kind of our community vision, how does it work for Cape Charles, market understanding, what does the community say they want, and really working on initiatives that we stood up in January, I guess it is, to say we're getting done as our first initiatives. Just wanted to kind of review some of the select accomplishments real quickly. This does not represent all of them, but I wanted to go through them just as a highlight of what we're doing. So just a reminder, we set up the 501c3. We were initially under the town. I was in a dual reporting hat, worked with the town as well as the board. So we filed everything, we've set up governance, we've set up systems, we've put all of that in place to date. God, this is small. So the second thing we did is kind of the infrastructure operations. We have internal systems that I'm happy to share. I don't know if you want to see them all, you probably don't, to track everything so we're auditable, so we're transparent. We also set up the governor's visit with, as well as the Secretary of Commerce visit. Those were 2 separate visits representing not only our Virginia Pilot Downtown in recognition, which was the first one in Virginia, but it also showcased businesses. The Secretary of Commerce was showcasing businesses that kind of were historical here, really started the growth in Cape Charles. And then the governor's visit recognized every business that has started since the last shoulder season. So that's kind of how we broke it up to make sure everyone was getting a little love. Obviously, not every single business was represented, but with over 22 businesses, it was we got a lot of press for that for Cape Charles. As I mentioned, we were selected for the first Virginia Pilot Downtown, which is essentially going from affiliate to designation. It's kind of a sweet spot in the middle where they give you resources and help and organizational development. And it's really quite an honor. It means that we're high profile. It means they're driven to really help us succeed. So that's what the Virginia Pilot Downtown is. We've had well over 1,500 volunteer hours. I say well over because while we're so busy doing other things, that's what's tracked so far. I can tell you that a lot of the volunteer hours haven't been tracked, and we'll get better about that moving forward. Cape Charles by the Bay. I don't know if any of you know the history of Cape Charles by the Bay. It was a website that was started by Harbor for the Arts. I won't go into the entire history, but the short version is when we inherited it. Suffice to say, I had no less than 15 meetings to figure out who owned it, who ran it, what was happening, where was it. Honestly, taking it over, it's an incredibly old site. That, not to go into details, but the back end of the website is incredibly hard to update. And it's something that as this new brand launch, which I'll talk about in a minute, goes live, we're not sure if we're going to transition that, and so we don't want to put a lot of investment into it. That said, it gets tons of hits. And so it's something that we're maintaining. We took it over, we spent a lot of time doing that, not only social media, but Cape Charles by the Bay. Just to give you a sense of what we've done with it is, besides kind of figuring out what the back end looks like and where it stands, we have done an audit on who's on there, who should come off, who has business licenses, who's new, who should be up there. All of that's done. I work really closely with Deb on a monthly basis to say, all right, who's new, who should be added, who's paid their license. So without going into too many details, it's not perfect, but it's better than it was. We also update the social media, mainly Facebook right now. We do have Insta, we did have Google+, so it's a work in progress. So again, it's a big animal that we've attacked. We also manage social media for Cape Charles Main Street. It's not quite this clean to think of Cape Charles by the Bay to the outside world, marketing, tourism, growth, businesses, and then Cape Charles Main Street for residents, businesses, and organizations. Another thing that we took over was evaluating what I'll call the marketing for the town. I will say that, again, this is a long, complicated process and story, but the short version is, now we're starting to track. When I came in, I said, all right, we want to see ROI. Who's the demographic? What's it doing? How are we making, money off it? How are we driving business? And so we probably evaluated, this is a low estimate, since we took that over, about 15 different opportunities, saved the town a ton of money. I don't think it was ever done. I think we always did what we did before, and so we took that over along with distributing rack cards to all this, the welcome centers, all of that stuff. So, all right, that's all. There's more than that. I just wanted to break down a little bit initiatives by community. Everything that we work on takes a while. It's for the community, by the community. It's done by volunteers. It's done by our incredibly hardworking board. Spend endless hours with us. And so I just wanted to give you a snapshot of where each committee was. Again, we stood up at the Rev Up and said, here's all the things we're working on as our first initiatives. So I wanted to give you that snapshot. Again, it's not all inclusive. Organizational committee is really the infrastructure, the governance, the what's going on, they've done the multiple RFPs and grants. They're what they sound like. They're really the organizational committee. Right now, we're working on our risk management policies as well as our fundraising strategy in a strategic way. Everything we do is not only strategy, but operations with timelines. So those are two things, and they're started because they're still underway. Those are part of our designation requirements as well. So those are currently in the works. Design, we conducted a bunch of walkabouts, what's going on in the community, what needs work, what is happening in the community, what's kind of the current state. As a piece of that, we decided that, and you'll hear more about this in a bit, but we decided that Strawberry Plaza was a great community gathering spot. You'll see a little bit later that there is going to be a community input session on first drafts of, hey, what do we want that to look like? What does that look like? What does the community want to see? How is it used? Similarly, parking is underway. We'll be meeting with the Planning Commission on, I think it's November 6th, to talk about parking. It was the #1 issue that everyone identified. Similarly, wayfinding, that's well underway. Promotions, we worked a lot on kind of, tell me if I'm okay time-wise, Libby. We've worked a lot on, they own Cape Charles by the Bay, and so we're working on what's the policy, how do we make sure everyone gets equal love? You know, what does that look like? What do partnerships look like to make sure that that's equitable across all organizations? I won't go into all of everything we're doing under promotions, but suffice it to say it's a lot. Economic vitality is part of our designation. We need to track every single thing going on from business, growth, jobs, what exists in the community, who owns it, what's going on. So we're completing a complete audit of what that looks like. The other thing we're doing is doing economic and market statistics so we can find grants so we know what's going on in the community that's accurate data rather than just county data. So that's underway as well. Another thing that's kind of exciting is we did what exists for entrepreneurial resources. That's one of the drivers of economic growth. The next layer on that is doing what should exist. As a piece of that, we're looking at what is the opportunity zone mean, what is the the international free trade zone. We have lots of different zones here, and so we're trying to be really strategic about layering what should exist, and then building on it. Along with that, we're looking at affordable workforce housing. We have a subcommittee working on it. It's a lot of work. It has many moving parts. There's a draft white paper on state of, again, with the lens of Cape Charles Main Street. All right, so here's my disclaimer on this. The town council report was due before we closed our books. You'll be getting a hand-delivered report as promised contractually in the next 2 weeks. So these are ish right. I will say from an expense standpoint, it's a 50-50 split. Right now on what we've spent, it's payroll and then other expenses. The current balance is 51. Keep in mind, we just received our second payment from the town as we did in the MOA. We have the quarterly payments, and so we've just received the next quarterly payment. The column on the right represents kind of what's coming up from an expense standpoint. That was agreed to a long time ago. So what's currently in play is the economic and market statistics that I just told you about. They'll be in town next week to start that process, which combines surveying, and it combines what's going on, what should we have here based on the population, what are we missing, what does our retail studies look like, what are the businesses that should move in because of the community and tourism, all of that stuff in economic and market statistics. Streetscape is coming up. That's a piece of Strawberry Plaza. That's what Streetscape is. It's the entire design committee and all their work. That represents their budget. And then the reason that I marked branding 13K, so it's a little bit complicated with the town because when we started we got a grant from DHCD for the branding initiative. And so because that was with the town, it remains with the town. And so there's $13,000 that still has to be paid to Otto as part of our whole branding initiative. That's why it started, because it's still under the town's budget. Marketing, the reason the 20K has started is because we just put in a grant for the marketing leverage program with the BATC. So we're hoping to deflect not only upcoming costs for marketing for the town, but also historical costs, and that's one of the beauties of the grant. And then the wayfinding is in process. Just wanted to give you a feel quickly of where we are in grants. We've won some, we've lost some, we've done pretty well, I think. We got the DHCD branding affiliate grant for the branding initiative that I was just talking about. We did a pitch competition for Strawberry Plaza, sorry, I shouldn't say Strawberry Square. It was just a quick entrepreneurial, do a quick pitch. We didn't win it, it would have been $5,000. We did win the Economic and Market Statistics affiliate grant, so we had the choice between them giving us funding or consultative services after those statistics were back on December 6th, so they give us consulting services on what to do with them for a transformational study. The board voted on it. They voted for the consulting services, so we won that. The marketing leverage grant I just talked about. So we lost it the first round. Candidly, it's because I screwed up on the technology. It's not a very savvy system, but we just put it in again. They've changed their system since, and it just went in for feedback Tuesday. Many of you know about our branding initiative for the entire town of Cape Charles. Many of you know how this process has worked, but just as a reminder, we started with our very first step was surveying the town about what we needed. We had tons of people, it was before I started, we had tons of people letting us know what they thought the town was, what they thought we needed, all of those things. So we went from there to then we had the board identified 13 stakeholders to be individually interviewed. Those stakeholders were all over the map. We were trying to represent every piece of the diverse community. We also had a branding think tank that over 70 people attended to give us their input. They gave their blood, sweat, and tears for that because it was probably 4 hours long, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Then another piece that is not represented on this is we did a survey again, so people got their feedback. I think we had over 70 responses if I'm remembering correctly. So we incorporated all of that data, and Otto came back with us with what I'll call a brand architecture document, which is essentially the pillars of what Cape Charles is, based on all of that feedback that they gathered. From there, we created a branding advisory committee that had over 13 people on it. These are people who are not only stakeholders, but have a marketing background, who are experts in the field. I will tell you, that was a really long and great and arduous process. I think they presented, I should have counted, over 30, probably 20 to 30 logos and taglines that the committee debated, and finally the amazing thing to me was everyone was completely in alignment. The town council, I know you're aware of what that looks like now. There's an official brand launch tomorrow night. Dead Rise Pies is throwing us a launch party following that. It'll be in Strawberry Plaza at 5:30. The next deliverables as part of that entire contract that I was talking about is, as you're well aware, is the next piece is an event, a joint logo and tagline for events that anybody can use if we're having an event, if the CCBA is having an event, if the Citizens for Cape Charles is having an event, all of those things. After that, there will be banners, and after that is really fine. So just to give you a feel of next steps. The names that you see on this slide are representing everyone who are on the branding advisory committee. As you can see, it was pretty broad, and honestly, that entire branding advisory committee, again, gave so many hours, endless hours, I can even tell you. So big thank you to all of them. I'm not going to call them out individually because I've already talked too long. I wanted to just show you what the brand pillars look like. You all have it, so I'm not going to go through it, but I think you'll find that it really represents the entire Cape Charles community. It'll be at the brand launch event again, and it's a great document too because we can really use it in our storytelling in a concise manner to talk about what Cape Charles is and who we are. So a couple dates of interest. We went to the regional rev-up. We're required to attend Main Street events. We had several people from our volunteer population coming along with board members. We just literally got back. As I mentioned, the branding launch is coming up tomorrow. We're also having the Strawberry Plaza input session on the draft that we came up with on the 29th. That's actually confirmed now. We're meeting with the Planning Commission on parking on November 6th. Before that, there'll be a community input session for that. Then we're meeting with the Harbor Review Board after the Strawberry Plaza input session early November. I'm still waiting on a date on that, but it's probably going to be the week of November 12th. And then the economic and market research study will be done by December 6th because we'll have someone from Main Street coming in to analyze that and help us with some transformation strategies. Questions? It's a lot. It's a lot, and everything takes a while, which is why I started with it's a marathon, not a sprint. Everything we're doing is, we're trying to include all of the community, by the community, and it's all gonna be great, but it's all really building the foundation. So again, I just went through the highlights. Some days sit in on our board meeting because I torture them.
Anybody have any questions?
Well, there's a huge amount of information in the Dropbox site for Main Street, and it appears that you've done an incredible amount of work in the time that you've been going. I unfortunately am not in town as much as many, but I feel like I'm not as aware of everything you're doing as I should be, and I don't know the best way for you to
Communicate that.
communicate that to at least the council, but and maybe it's minutes from your board meetings or something like that that get distributed as opposed to just reside where we have to look for them.
To be honest with you, that was something that we identified about 2 months ago while we're posting and working fast and furious. We're not doing a good job with communication. And so we put together a subcommittee to say, what does that need to look like? We have 5 deliverables that are starting, one of which are what I'll say, the town council, I do a monthly town council report to you guys that doesn't really get distributed out to the community. So that's a piece of it. Every single committee is going to do a monthly report now. Get that out on Facebook and in print. We're doing a newsletter, and I'm missing something else, but you're absolutely right. Honestly, it just hasn't been communicated well, and we're endeavoring to fix
And
it.
I don't want you to get a bad reputation for not communicating, because there's already lots of stuff out there for, what are they doing and why are they doing it and why don't I know about it kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I can tell you that every single committee meeting we have is communicated, has been communicated, but the context of said every meeting has not been communicated very well, and we're endeavoring to solve that.
Thank you.
I don't think that the group has this presentation. Am I
We
correct?
do not.
So I thought we were.
I'll get it to you.
Okay.
Just ignore the finances,
Well, I
it's
just want to say
latest
thank you.
report.
I just want to say thank you all very much. It's been a lot of hours, a lot of hard work, so thank you. Very appreciative. Our next, rail heritage presentation. Rail heritage presentation.
Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you very much for having us on your agenda this evening. We sent an initial email to the members of the council and to Mr. Mayor on August the 30th, and for us to be here making a presentation today, I find just remarkable that 6 weeks later we're actually able to speak with you. And we really want to thank you for hearing from us. The New York, Philadelphia, and Norfolk Railroad Resurrection is a corporation that was established with the purpose of economic development on the Lower Shore. None of that can occur without starting in Cape Charles with the rail yards. And we really appreciate you taking into consideration what those rail yards mean to the economic development of the town. It is absolutely remarkable to me that you have gone from a plan that essentially disregarded those rail yards 10 or 12 years ago to a plan that has really incorporated them into the economic development of the town. And we really appreciate that and really appreciate the opportunity to be before you. Frankly, we are looking for an endorsement for the raw concept of saving some portion of the rail yards for their historic value and for their economic value before we make a presentation similar to the presentation we're making tonight to ANTDC, the Transportation District Council. The council has made it clear to us that without your support, they would not be supportive of this concept. With your support, they absolutely would be. So having said those things, many of your town citizens are incredibly interested in this project. In a week, we received 160 signatures on a petition saying that some portion of the rail yard should be saved, both for historic and economic value. Your Assistant Harbor Master, Spencer Travis, upon hearing this, almost immediately came up with this design, which appears on the monitors for the rail yard, and also Spencer is very, very interested in having a ferry running from Cape Charles, a high-speed ferry running from Cape Charles to Norfolk, and we believe that that should be part of the plan as well. That having been said, we have a, this is self-explanatory, it just says that the following page is a satellite view of the rail yards, which it is very clearly. This is what has been left. It is owned by Canoni Atlantic, and ANTDC is able to exercise its single share in Canoni Atlantic to determine what the future of these rail yards is going to be. And ANTDC is vitally interested, I believe, from everything that we've learned from them in the council's view of those rail yards. We know that the comprehensive plan speaks to a mixed use, and we understand that and believe that it should be a mixed use. So, without further ado, I'll go to the next slide. What I referred to earlier is that there was a comprehensive plan adopted in 1999 that spoke eloquently to the historic value of the railroad, but rather disregarded the economic value of the railroad, and really dismissed the use of the rail yards for the purposes of maintaining any railroad or any rails for transportation, either commuter or tourist, as a tourist attraction. The council, as everybody is aware, adopted a very different plan in 2016 that I think came out in large part of the 2006 harbor study that the town commissioned, which spoke to the economic value of the railroad. And that comprehensive plan has very clearly addressed rail travel, the use of the rail yards themselves as a tourist attraction and for commuter needs. To go into the comprehensive plan itself as it applies to rail usage, on the next page, we've jumped ahead of ourselves here and taken a chunk of page 42 of the comprehensive plan, and what is highlighted in yellow there to encourage rail development for commuter use and scenic routes and at-grade railroad crossings. We believe that NYPN can directly get that done for the town. Those things that are highlighted in green, which are too numerous to go through in a limited amount of time, but they're there for your later perusal, are those items that were in the comprehensive plan, in the summary of the comprehensive plan, that we believe we will be directly helping with. Even though we won't be doing those things directly, we will be helping the town to accomplish those things. I've gone to a fairly great extent, as has Mr. Paffrath, of delving into the comprehensive plan for its mention of the rail yards and railroads. And the next 3 or 4 pages do that in some detail. I don't know that it's necessary for us to go into them this evening. If any of the citizens of Cape Charles who are here do want copies of this presentation so that they can look at it at their leisure, it will be available from us electronically, and the council does have it on paper. Again, same thing, and same thing again on page 17, but 15, 16, and 17 mention it in fair amounts of detail, as does page 18. We have then, what we did originally is made a proposal that we thought would be appropriate for the township, and this is a very crude drawing, but initially we believed that a traffic circle behind the new hotel that is to be built out at the point at the beach and at the ferry dock, not at the ferry dock, excuse me, at the barge dock, would benefit from having a traffic circle and stores immediately behind it. We had some other things that we were suggesting built into that drawing, but then we started surveying the business owners on Mason Street and talking with citizens in the town and asking some questions that we believe were relevant to the railroad. Those are found on the next page in the presentation here, and again, if any of the citizens of the town would like to have copies of this electronically, we'll get them right to you. Just check with us after the meeting, and we'll make sure that you have our email address and we get yours, and we'll get those out to you. But after asking these questions, our initial proposal changed pretty drastically. We realized that the rails were going to interfere with the mixed use. Many of those rails are going to interfere with the mixed use that the township proposes. And so what we have done is drawn here in blue those tracks that we believe need to remain in order for an operation to be able to be successful, for a rail operation to be able to be successful. We have marked in yellow those tracks that we believe should be eliminated, and in red and white, in the stripes there, we have addressed those tracks that we believe need to be extended. The extension down towards the beach is a suggestion directly from an ANTDC member who said that trams or rail cars should be able to pick up passengers right down at the beach. Now, clearly, we're going to need the permission of the folks who are building the hotel before we can do that. There is a consortium. I have spoken with an accountant for that group. I have not spoken with the entire group. So whether that extension that you see to the left of the page is going to be feasible, is going to remain in their hands as much as in ours. The extension down by the Y, further to the right on the lower side of the page, is going to be pretty essential though to operations of the yellow tracks. Mr. Patrick, do you have anything to add to that, sir?
The blue tracks.
The blue tracks, excuse me.
No, that's pretty much it, yeah, that very well sums it up.
Moving forward, what types of cars are we proposing? We're not proposing to have a full railroad initially, by any means. Our suggestion is that trolley cars or trams be used initially to see whether this program can be commercially successful. We would suggest for tourist purposes that we be able to use something like this that's a double decker with an open upper deck Folks can sit down below if the weather's bad, they can sit up above if the weather's good. And we believe that this would be the most attractive sort of thing for the average tourist in town. We're open to suggestion. We're open to all kinds of suggestions and discussion on any of the things that we presented this evening. But our thinking was that we should go to a tram. It would be a propane electric hybrid so that we limit pollution to an absolute minimum. We have also included some other styles of trolley on the next page so that if anybody thinks that one of those styles would be better, we'd love to hear from you on it. The next page is an artist's concept of what a renewal or a rebuilding of the old station would look like. If we would go back to one of the overhead views, the old train station is actually up at the end where the shanty is, right before we get to the right-of-way before the new hotel, and the right-of-way that leads back to the shanty. Our sense is that in order to get a T21 grant to rebuild the station, it has to be on the original footers, but we don't believe that it has to be on the original GPS coordinates. So we believe that those original footers could be moved down just east of Peach Street at the harbor itself, just east of the Peach, what we understand is going to be the Peach Street extension. And we believe that if the footers were moved to that location, we could find funding to build this station. Again, it would be for trams, it would not be for the rail cars that are shown here, but we could have a replica of the old railway station there. That could be used for meetings, it could be used for a variety of purposes that we believe fits in with the mixed-use purposes that the township is looking for. I'm sorry, I pushed the wrong button there. The next page is an artist's concept of what a roundhouse and the original turntable that is currently under the spoils area would look like were it rebuilt. We're not as fixated on getting that done as we are on getting something moving over the rails and getting a station built at this time. But eventually, we believe that a turntable could, in and of itself, be a great tourist attraction. Oh, I'm sorry. The next page is actually only in paper there. It is statistics that are related to other tourist railroads and other townships. Mr. Packrat, you can address that much better than I can. Do you need a copy of it in front of you? No?
These railroads on here that you're looking at, a number of them I was instrumental in working with the teams that initially built them. These statistics, these guys all called me up in the last couple of weeks and gave me all the stats for their ridership for last year. And the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum and Strasburg shows the difference between a static railroad museum and an operational museum, because Strasburg is literally right across the street from the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum. So the comparison is like 2 lanes away. Just wanted to give you an idea on their ridership. Those are ticket sales, 190,000 tickets is 190,000 riders. Now, of course, the question is, a big question becomes, well, what about parking? And a lot of these museums are set way out in the boonies. They use conventions and buses that bring people there for the day, spend their money, take a ride on the train, stay in town for a few hours, and then take the bus back to their convention at Virginia Beach Oceanfront, Williamsburg, downtown Norfolk. So on the bottom there, I showed you some numbers from 2017 of tourism in Virginia Beach and Norfolk. And if we only got 1% or even a little bit less, hopefully, because out of 19 million visitors over there last year, even a little less than 1% is still a great amount of people. So we have a huge potential for bringing tourists across. And like I say, the convention buses, the charter companies, they provide all the transportation. So our biggest concern would be where to put 3 tour buses every day. So that's what that last slide there is about. So if you'll have any questions, comments, I'll be open to field anything I can for you, sir.
How much money are you planning to raise for this?
Excuse me?
How much money are you planning to raise for this?
Because we're working as a 501c3, the amount of money that we raise is totally in relation to how far we go with the project. In the beginning of the project, we wanted to start with a streetcar. Most likely we will lease one. If Hampton Roads Transit Authority comes on board, we will be able to purchase cars like the ones you saw up there on the screen. We have a number of private investors that we're working with, and we have a number of private corporations who are willing to donate equipment, like turntable, railroad ties, things that are going to be necessary to upgrade the line. So that's all. Then we have volunteers, and we're working on a government agency right now who has a lot of people that are required to do community service to move up in their ranks. We're looking at making this a community service project for them.
So that the amount of money that we actually spend in the first year is going to depend entirely on which projects we tackle in the first year.
Right, and you can't go tackling a huge project to start off with. So we've broken it down into phases, and phase 1 is we have to secure the tracks at all costs. All bets are off if there's no train tracks. So to start with, the streetcar, the one commissioner recommended running from the beach to Sheridan. And that would, of course, hook up all of the streets through Cape Charles, Historical Society, Brewery, Food Line, out to Sheridan, turn around, and come back.
And if we go between townships, if we're able to go between Cape Charles and Sheridan, we're actually providing commuter transportation between townships. Once that happens, federal transportation grants open up. If we're just operating within township for tourist transportation, and let's say we stopped short at the brewery and didn't try to cross 13, then we're limited in what we can do in terms of asking for federal dollars.
Also, the commission has a lot of railroad enhancement grants available to them, grants from the DRPT, just for the maintenance of their line. But they can't qualify for any of those grants if they don't have a train, which a streetcar constitutes a train. If they don't have a train running over the tracks, they can't even ask for the money. So one of our trade-offs to the commission is that we can get an operation going with them. They're going to give us the track rights to operate, and they're going to get the money on the backside from the federal grants that are available to all railroads for maintenance.
So phase 1 would include not only obtaining a tram or a streetcar, but it would also include tearing out that track that was no longer going to be needed.
Right, and the track that is not needed, we can reuse that material. There's still a lot of good ties in there. If the group that is going to build a hotel down here agrees to allow us to run a track all the way out to the beach, then a lot of where the pizza train used to come in, those two little sidings there, those are all brand new ties and brand new rail. We can just pick those ties up and skid the rail down to the other end, spike it down, bolt it down, and that's simple. Sounds like a lot of work, but really, once you get used to doing it, it moves a lot quicker than you realize.
And our community service spoke with the people who would be doing that removal and replacement.
Right, community service people, volunteers, we have 15 volunteers right now, and we've been so inundated with this, we really haven't had a chance to get out and look for more volunteers from the community and get more people involved. So that will come.
All right, anybody have any questions?
So I guess our question is, we are on the agenda, as I understand it, for the Accomack Northampton Transportation District Commission meeting in November. If the council is able to provide us with a resolution saying that you support the concept, just the raw concept of preserving part of the track for economic development and for tourist use in compliance with the comprehensive plan, we would take that resolution to ANTDC, and I believe that you will find that they would consider it.
That's, we'll discuss it. And John, I'll get back with you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you very much.
Public comments. We have everybody signed up for this one? All right. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? All in favor?
I have a comment if you don't mind. On public utilities report, town manager, I'd just like to make a note. Wastewater still is exceeding the water production by about 1 million gallons a month, and I think we need to start working on a plan to do something about that. And the phosphorus levels look like they're up, and we got taken by surprise in the past, and they went out of limits before we realized things were happening. So I just want to know that we are proactively working to reverse them. Thank you.
Any more discussion? We got a motion, we got a second. All in favor? Opposed? Unfinished business. Zoning ordinance text amendments, accessory dwelling units.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the last of the procedural requirements were met this evening with the town council public hearing as advertised. In the past, the planning commission has had a public hearing and received further public comment recommending that accessory dwelling units move forward to reconcile the comprehensive plan with the zoning ordinance. Currently, the comprehensive plan calls for accessory dwelling units. The zoning ordinance prohibits them, so that reconciliation needs to happen at some point. What you've got there under item specifics are the specific text requirements, and the attachment to the report is the actual draft language for several zoning ordinance sections. The recommendation from staff is to further review it, and if town council appropriate to adopt the proposed text draft amendments as advertised for the public hearing tonight and as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Would you like a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we table this. And it's based on the aspect of fees, water, sewer, trash, monthly fees. I know we've talked about this, but I think we've gotten some feedback from the public that we may be inconsistent in the application of this. And therefore, I am not ready to support moving ahead on this without further discussion. So,
What are the public comments?
well, I'm just saying, not
That's what we're doing
tonight,
tonight, obviously.
not tonight, but public comments, meaning if I have an accessory dwelling unit and I don't use it for rental purposes, we're still fostering this fee on the principal homeowner. And I still am under the view that usage is captured through, if there's no separate meter, usage is captured through the principal homeowner, and that to me is sufficient.
I got a motion on the floor. Before we carry on any more discussion, do I have a second?
Excuse me, Mayor, motion again, just to
Motion.
lay on the table
Motion.
for all this kind of other discussion.
Motion to table.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I agree with
I know there's been a lot of work done on this, and this has been probably the hardest nut within. I think we need more conversation on that before we come to terms.
Well, we've had a lot of discussion on it, and I thought we were kind of moving forward with it. I'm not sure I understand your opposition, so maybe you could explain it again so I could better understand why you're.
All right, I appreciate that. I just view the application similar to how electricity would come to this unit. Typically, you'll have electricity come to the house, you'll run an extension out to this particular accessory dwelling unit or sub-panel, and the electric company is going to monitor usage through the normal billing process. And I see that as being the same application here on water and sewage, if I don't have separate connections. If I have separate connections, I'm all for charging, but if I have it coming through the principal residence, we already capture usage, and therefore we shouldn't be hitting the homeowner up again.
So, I mean, as I understand it, the accessory unit may have a separate meter or does not necessarily have to have a separate meter, is that correct?
That's correct. It does not necessarily have a separate meter. If the property owner wants to capture the full cost, they would go through the separate metering process.
So, what is your opposition to that?
Because I'm saying, I'm not opposed to a separate meter and charging for it. I'm saying, in my thinking, the majority of homeowners are going to tap off their home ownership, principal residence, excuse me, and run lines out, and you've got the meter on the house that's going to be charging against the home as well as accessory dwelling unit, and that's what's being paid. I don't need an extra charge on top of that. Which is what was being proposed.
You're saying for the two buildings.
Right.
That's the way it was settled, that there would be two buildings, not just separate.
Never been billing for the minimum usage, am I right, Larry? On the accessory dwelling, what you're saying is that you don't feel like that one billing for the main structure is enough.
If they chose to have it,
If they choose to
line,
if they choose
like
to
a
have a
separate
separate
line,
meter,
separate.
then it's hookup fees and a whole bunch of models.
Correct.
Mayor, one other difference though, Paul, that the metering and monitoring of water as opposed to other kinds of infrastructure is that we know that we have so many units that we have to keep an account for. Whereas, you know, a single dwelling, however much comes in and power goes out, but we have to watch that. And so I think it would be very difficult for us if we didn't have a separate metering or separate account of some sort, okay, that would
take into consideration any CUP issued accessory dwelling. Because then it would kind of go into flux, and that would be, I guess, a manual way to construct how many accounts we had, and have to keep up with that all the time, as to whether it was in use, not in use, that sort of thing. I think that would be kind of a problem. And I do think historically, please correct me if I'm wrong, where there were second units, Chris, you would know this better than most, I guess, where there were second units, there had been a minimum bill applied to them, even if there was only 1 meter. Anyway, am I correct about that?
Well, we have a number of applications where I believe we weren't looking at and we were going to rectify it. Now, I don't know how many applications that occurred in existing town.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of them historically, where there'd be like 1 meter and there'd be
I had
more
a
than one.
quadplex behind me, and they had, you had a little lady, somebody with about 5 children, but they took the bill off 1 meter. It's the poor little lady, someone really bear the brunt of it.
Right.
I like to see separate meters. Like you may have a couple who put in the accessory building, but, and then they move out, and somebody moves in with 5 children. They're flushing all day long. And again, the poor person in the little thing, they're at work and they're going to get a very high bill.
But that's up to the principal homeowner relationship to the accessory dwelling unit.
I would go for the separate meter. Very close to the
And I don't think, if we're looking at affordability here, that's the other aspect, okay? Affordability, we're not.
I don't think these apartments are going to, these little buildings are going to be affordable. We're trying to look out for the school teachers, we're trying to look out for the Coast Guard, and I'll guarantee the prices are going to be high, and you have no control over that.
Other than increasing the number of marketable rental units in town.
How much you need to pay water and sewage?
What'd you say, Steve? I'm sorry.
For which you need to pay water and sewage as a separate bill. I mean, it says right here that even if it's 1 meter, you're gonna get 2 bills, correct?
That's what I'm taking objection.
That's what I'm
to it.
So 2 meters means though that
Two
they have to, 2 bills, yes, but they have to also have a separate line,
Correct.
Yeah.
correct? So
Two
that,
connection fees.
and just so that for everybody, what's the expense, what's the number of that? What's the,
If it's
no, to put the line in?
That's one rental. I mean, if they go directly from their dwelling to the accessory dwelling, they'll run their own line, and they'll tie their own sewer. There won't be any hookup fees. Like, they'll just get billed an extra monthly for the accessory dwelling, once the post to get the, another fee for the accessory dwelling, I think it's the minimum fee.
Okay, but to be clear, it's an option, and what we have here, homeowner's option is to have a separate meter, where it would be, as you're saying,
That's correct.
Chris, or, if not, they would receive, a bill based on that, where the meter's use was, but not less than just a minimum monthly bill for the second one.
Yeah.
Okay? And you rejected that, and it's
That's
required. Okay. All right.
Separate meter, yes, separate bill. But if you're coming through principal residence, that's where you capture the usage, and that's what you're paying. And it's up to the
Is
homeowner.
Huck allowed to speak right now or not?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
We're talking amongst ourselves, I'm sorry.
So again, we view it as though these are rental units too, and it may or may not be rental units. And if it's not a rental unit, we're still applying this minimum bill through this current worded proposal.
We got a motion on the floor to table it, we got a second. All in favor? Table. Aye, how many ayes?
Tabling it for, what's that? Does that-
Table for future discussion.
I'd feel more comfortable with it if it had some, not just future discussion, because we've just been working, it's been worked on for so long. Is there a way to identify, that some time period of which it gets resolved?
Yeah, I'm looking to jump back into this within the next month or two, to really, there was a lot of effort to get us to where we are now.
Yeah.
We
This
could
is,
put it on
again, the
next-
last nut to crack.
We can put it on the next work session.
And just come with various options and talk through each one. Pros and cons, and leave with that.
I would vote if we get a work session scheduled, not in the ambiguous future, but immediate.
Okay. We got a motion and we got a second to table. Yes. All in favor? One, two, three, four. Opposed? So moved. Conditional use permit application 12 Peach Street.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is for the application of a 12 Peach Street, which is in the C1 district. It's currently a vacant building, residential code for the upper floors and commercial on the bottom floor. It is residential or commercial is the only conditional use in the C1 district. This has been through the process of planning commission public hearing on Monday, September 17th. No members spoke either for or against the application. Commissioners reviewed the application again at their October meeting, second regular meeting, and voted unanimously to recommend council approve the application. Council public hearing, which is the last procedural obligation, was held this evening. There was a comment for it. At this point, staff recommends that the council review and discuss, and if deemed appropriate, adopt or rather issue the conditional use permit for residential units above commercial at 12 Peach Street. That's staff's recommendation as well as the planning commission.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
Like, second it?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Electronic participation in the public body meeting.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this was discussed several months ago. What's before you is the actual language to allow for electronic participation in town council meetings by way of formal policy, and it reflects the language found in the Code of Virginia.
You can only use it twice a year. Is that the new thing?
Per person, yes.
Yeah, per person.
I move that we accept the electronic participation in county council meetings as adopted in this policy.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, just a little bit of
Discussion.
Because I disagree, and only because the two reasons are for an emergency or personal matter, the member must specifically identify, and it's got to be on or before the date of the town council meeting. By its nature, an emergency could quite likely not be happening more than a day in advance of the meeting, so I don't know that that's good. But there's also no consideration for a member who's out of town for other reasons, such as work, conference, or some other extenuating circumstance that doesn't allow them to be here. And while it's still limited to 2 meetings a year, for me, that would be the reason that I'd be missing meetings, because I'm out of town on business travel, which I can't avoid. So I understand why it may be by state code, but I mean, for this use, that's what I would think.
I thought of that in there. I thought that an emergency or personal matter is where the personal matter would cover your work. That's how I interpreted that. Is that?
Is it?
Yes, I did, because I thought specifically
Yes.
here, as our council person that travels for work, that's what came to mind.
Okay, well, if that is in fact
Yeah.
the
I mean, I
definition, I don't know how personal that is.
I know, in a work sense, that's the exact opposite of what you do.
Personally, I pays bills.
But in this sense, when it's not, this isn't good work, it's, you know what I mean? I think that's what it's covering.
So I'm not sure the word emergency really gets us hung up, because typically if you go on a business trip, it's a plan, you never go on a business trip, but it's a plan, I'm gonna be out Thursday through.
Yeah, that will be more than a day in advance,
Yes.
there's no issue.
Right.
You can't manage a product in the emergency.
Right, and not the first priority, right? Well, I mean, I thought of things like, you know, death of a family member, or those types, unfortunately, that's what came to mind, and, I mean, I agree, it's not always gonna be a day, but, if, you know, if you do know, then, but I think the personal matter, for you, that is your personal matter.
Okay, well, that's considered personal matters. Okay.
So we got a motion, we got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Me.
You still have one vote, Phase 4 of Southern Tip Bike and Hike Trail, VDOT Highway Safety Improvement Program grant. You wanna, is this one more here? Ms. Vaughn, you wanna get up and just say a couple words on this, so I can answer what's going on?
So good evening, I'm Clara Vaughn. I've taken over for Barb Schwank for transportation planning, for those I haven't met.
Can everybody hear her?
Yeah,
Sorry,
just speak up.
Sure, so I think most of you are familiar by now with this grant application. Basically, for some background, I think everyone knows there have been 2 pedestrian fatalities on Stone Road and its intersection with Route 13 since 2014. So that's what we're hoping to address with this grant. It's through VDOT's Highway Safety Improvement Program, and it's the Bike and Pedestrian Safety Program under that. The grant's got a maximum of $5 million awarded. There's no local match. That can cover everything from preliminary engineering through final engineering, environmental review, and construction. So we're looking at a November 1st deadline, and you guys should have maps with your packet. I've got hard copies if anybody wants one of those. So that's the background. I'm here to answer any questions.
I asked a question when it was presented to us last month or the month before last, how much?
The grant.
How much?
Is the grant?
How much are they gonna ask Cape Charles for? And it seems they're asking Cape Charles for almost everything after the,
I think this is a fully funded grant.
It's a fully funded.
but the maintenance goes to Cape Charles and for
Right. So the maintenance would go through the town of Cape Charles, as you guys would be the owners of the trail. And I have a couple of reports that have some statistics on maintenance, but you can also draw from community volunteer groups. A lot of trails do that to lower maintenance costs. And I've talked to Bob Leppel at the Fish and Wildlife Service and just gotten a little bit of information from him since they're maintaining phase 1. He said for their trail, which is 2.6 miles, they took about 4 hours of mowing, 2 hours of clearing, and they got youth volunteers to do branch cutting, and that was 3 days per year.
We talking about from 4A in for Cape Charles at finish line. You look at the map, you get 4A marked on there.
Yeah, the proposed route is 4A, and then also going across the highway.
Well, but I mean, from the marking of the map, we basically done from finish line to the town right away. You're talking all the way to 13?
Yeah.
Which, I think you kind of somebody that area cleaned and cleared now coming into town a little bit.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, it's even across 13, you say, as well?
Yes, so VDOT actually today submitted some cost estimates and some preliminary designs for crossing either at Stone Road Route 13 or the second leg goes into Country Place.
it's something that we all want.
Right.
It is, but I don't understand, you know, I mean, a large portion of the trail, or it could be 40%, it could be 50% is in the county, so why isn't the county joining us in any expenditures for this? And why are we owning it in the county? How do we own it in the county? We don't, we're just maintaining it in the county, I don't understand that.
Well, we would be owning it from the county.
Hmm?
And what I read, the grant money, please correct me, the grant money would help provide for the purchase of the easement, but not the maintenance.
That's correct.
So we would own it.
So we would own the easement.
In the county.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the asset to what this, for us as residents, from a tourism perspective, is tremendous. I mean, it's over the top. I think that understanding the realistic numbers of what that is to maintain is where we're at. But I mean, the asset that will bring, I mean, if you look at the, kind of the Williamsburg Patriot Trail, and the numbers that have been shown for that significance of connecting those areas is amazing. And for us to have this to connect eventually the rest of the trail system sets us up very forward thinking.
Oh, absolutely. We're down to the deadline, November 1st is the deadline, we all want it. We may have to raise the TOT tax.
Not if there are any more people
Let's
can
go.
spend.
I mean, Rick, I think for me, already kind of maintaining and keeping kind of into Cape Charles looking nice. I think it's a cutout for sure that we can kind of keep.
So are we sure the grant is gonna cover the easement from Canone? We don't even know what that easement is. It says the assessed value.
That's just what the MOU says.
Yeah, I get that, but I mean, I don't wanna get left hanging out should the grant not cover the easement. Canone could say they want $1 million for the easement after we sign this agreement.
Well, it said it was at the assessed value.
Larry and I did talk about this, and there's kind of a clause, if you look at the MOA, that says, you know, if anyone who wants to get out, you can do that. And that was considering those easements and anything got really expensive. But we have, you know, we've talked to Canone and everyone's on board with the project.
Yeah, don't we cut 13 on this side, I mean, Stone Road that side anyway? Cut the whole road.
What?
The grass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're trees, turn the trees.
Cut the grass, so.
I get a motion?
I make a motion.
What's your motion?
Go ahead with it.
What was that?
I mean, we're trapped, you have to do it.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, the motion is for the entering in the MOU in order to get the application done, right? That's what we're agreeing to do, right? Okay.
Yeah, I've actually got a couple of worksheets on there, if you guys want to review them.
Phase 3 is coming after this, before this
Phase
phase.
three,
This
yeah.
is phase 4.
This is phase 4, and phase 3 will connect it with the existing Southern Tip Trail.
Yeah, so they're on phase 2 right now, that's what they're working on, so 3 is gonna go from Stingrays up to Food Line, right?
It should drive around Crescent Circle.
Our parcel circle area.
Oh, okay.
So we got some time for that, that's all.
Got a motion, I got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have
And there's 4 motions on page 2 of the staff report that are required for this. It's a 4th, we got the,
Yeah.
That's the
Okay, so that one was for the MOA.
That's the second part.
That's just authorizing and the self-employed application on behalf of the town. And I think when Kurt presented last time, he said it would be
Oh, yeah.
in 2000.
Yep. And we
Okay.
approved.
All right.
I'll make a motion. I would move that we authorize the town manager to formally request the APDC to prepare and submit that application for funding through the biking and pedestrian safety program. And that we appoint at least one member to a bike trail working group.
I'm sorry, Susan, there's some talking going on back there. Please, if you don't mind, I'll make this motion.
Okay, I'm looking at our recommendation of action items 1 and 3 and 4. The third one being a motion to appoint at least one person to a bike trail working group during this application and any implementation of the trail. And then finally, to authorize the town manager to sign a letter of support for the application and subsequent implementation of phase 4 of the Southern Tip Bike and Hike Trail.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And did you
For
guys-
item number 3. 3, appointing at least one member.
Pass.
What I'd ask is perhaps somebody from the planning commission be assigned that. Let it up to that committee to designate somebody, but it should come from that group.
And you guys as owners, if you want to have more than one member, we would welcome that as well.
I'm fine with that. All right. New business.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
thank you. Waste collection contract renewal.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is the annual renewal of the extension of the waste contract with Davis. And the proposal for the year effective November 1st is $15.20 per container per month. And this takes into consideration the built-in increase in the contract called for when there's an increase in the tipping fee at the county dump. So that's what the annual would be effective November 1.
I move that we approve the first extension to the water collection and disposal service contract.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? USDA Rural Development Program applications.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. We've had a long association with USDA Rural Development. Just get our loans and grants for police vehicles, other county equipment. They have new requirements now with the new administration. And one of these, we need to reapply for the police vehicle. We need to redo the loan applications. And one of the things we need to do in order to do that is to pass this resolution that assigns the authority to sign all documents and commit the town to the loan and grant requirements, assign them to certain individuals or positions. So in past, we typically have that done by the mayor or the town manager. So I recommend that we pass the resolution as stated to allow the mayor or town manager to sign these documents in the future, and for this particular one as well.
So move for motion.
Second.
I move for the adoption of resolution 2018-1018 of governing body of the Town of Cape Charles for the purchase of a police vehicle as noticed in foregoing reading of the resolution. Roll call vote.
Buckles, yes.
Holloway, yes.
Bennett, yes.
Bannon, yes.
Grossman, yes.
Burge, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Town manager performance evaluation documents. Councilman Grossman did a lot of legwork in preparing documents for up and coming and future performance evaluation forms. We spent a lot of time on it, they've all reviewed it. I might ask for a motion to pass this, approve this form to go into the personnel policy manual and to be used for all town councils review evaluations of town managers.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Also, like to thank Paul for all the work he did on this.
All did a lot
I'm
of
gonna hunt you down before the end of the month now.
So we will receive a clean copy that says go for it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Mr. DeRay, do you have any comments this evening?
Just a few. First of all, I want to thank our public works crew for the cleanup following all the damage done around town by the hurricane. Also, extend appreciation to the power company and VDAS contractors for their participation as well in the cleanup. Just wish to remind everyone that the 2016 hazard mitigation plan points out that wind is the primary concern as far as hazards are concerned to the town of Cape Charles. and especially winds and their relationship to trees. Obviously, there's been a lot of damage to tree canopy around town. People are doing what they need to do to clear their property. There's still dangling limbs and split trunks, so I expect that the tree clearing will continue for a period of time. In the near future, I'll be bringing back some information, or the planning department will anyway, about amendments to our tree ordinance to allow for the reasonable removal of trees. No one wants to see the town deforested. At the same time, because someone planted a tree 40 years ago in a location, doesn't mean current property owners need to be at the mercy of weather that may have not been the best tree in the best place at the best time or maintained well. So there needs to be reasonable accommodation to remove trees when they're not appropriate for location and to maintain the valuable tree canopy that we have in town. Secondly, the Wetlands and Coastal Dune Board had a meeting on October 1, which is a public input meeting on the Bay Avenue, well, with a lot of people from Bay Avenue, but basically on the beach management plan. So there was a good amount of public input. Deputy Clerk Houghton put together all of that information in like an Excel sheet for Ann Walker, the chair of that Wetlands Board. So that's been sent to them with all the public comment on it. The Wetlands Board will be working on that report, the draft of it all October. Probably by Christmas time will be something reasonable to bring to town council. At that point, the planning department will do that. But if there's anyone who also wants to weigh in on an opinion of Bay Avenue and or the beach and the sand management, please contact Deputy Clerk Houghton with your comments and she'll move those along to Ann Walker and the Wetlands Board. And then finally, and most importantly for me, we have an agreement to hire a new town planner, Zach Pons, who's currently with the city of Chamblee, Georgia, will be joining us the last week in November. Master's degree, 3 years of experience. Just recent brand spanking the master's degree, so he's 17 years smarter than I am. And I'm happy to have him on board. I think he'll be a really good addition and really speaks to the future of our organization. So when Zach comes in, I'll have him come and meet the council.
Wonderful.
Thanks. I know one job.
Very soon.
Mayor and council comments, I'll say one for last. Andy?
All I have is the reminder of the branding launch tomorrow at 5:30 at Strawberry Street.
Mr. Bennett?
Just echoing on what Larry was talking about as far as the storm, I think this storm was, typically they're oversold and they're not as severe as they say they're going to be. I think this one was undersold. And I think it was a lot more severe than we were anticipating, particularly judging from my yard. But it just would, I feel this way now, and I talked to a number of people that have. There's lots of people that say they're going to stay during a storm. If we ever have a hurricane that is going to hit us directly, leave. There's no sense in staying in that kind of a situation. And you can look at that the beach in Florida, where there was one concrete house that survived and everything else was gone, including foundations. So, heed the warning.
As our speed was going over top of us, is that at 60 miles per hour to it.
Mr. Bennett?
The parking of boats on the town streets, is that still on the agenda to take to Richmond? Or has it been lost? You have to get the house.
I haven't lost it.
Okay, I haven't lost it. Okay, I'm just.
It's council's will.
Should probably be added to a strategic planning session. Capture it. Yeah, just 2 notes of thanks. We have in the package here reappointment of board members, and some have been on here for a long time. So I'd like to really thank Joe Ferrer, Bill Murphy, Bill Strand, and Keith Kostick for their continued effort on boards. The other thing, just thanks to all the volunteers, including town office personnel that have been involved with Main Street and specifically branding. So it's a good combination of people getting together to do good for the town. That's all.
I would echo those remarks, but also I'd like to add that one of the most important things, as far as I'm concerned, that we're going to be doing this fall is our planning session. It is not on the announcements. I just double checked here. It's not November 3rd. Please mark on your calendar. I think one of the most important things we can do is set priorities for the town, and it's imperative we do that now before we get into the budget process. Thank you.
Myself, I would like to touch on what Steve said. That could be more prior to the first responders. That was at Park tonight. ADEC, county staff, ambulance people, VDOT, time staff, public works is going around and just diligently going, starting at 5:30 in the morning and trying to help clean up. And I can't say enough how proud I am of those people. I appreciate, again, I appreciate the work that this council has been doing over the past 2 or 3 months. Thank you all very much. Kind of a lot going on. A lot of you, so thank you. Announcements, office hours, come see me, 2 to 4 every Wednesday. I'm upstairs in the in the conference room. We've got a work session scheduled for November 1st at 6:30. We've got a strategic session scheduled November 3rd at probably 8 to 5. It's an all-day event. We're going to appreciate our boards and commissions on November 14th.
Is that time?
At 6 p.m.
It is 6 now?
Yep.
Okay.
Of course, town council regular meeting is November 15th. Town offices will close at noon on November 21st. And they'll be closed the 22nd through the 24th for Thanksgiving. Right now we'll have a motion to recess for about 5 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all very much. You all have safe travel.